There are places where humans just shouldn't be. The vacuum of space, the crushing depths of the sea. So how in the world do we survive there? Well, we do it by building this tiny, perfect bubble of Earth and just carrying it with us. The real question is, how do you actually build that bubble? Let's get into the incredible science of life support systems. So picture this. You're standing on the moon. It's one of the deadliest environments imaginable. How do you stay alive? The answer is this thing. It's basically a backpack. This is the Apollo Portable Life Support System, and it is an absolute masterpiece of engineering. It has everything a person needs to live. But what does that really mean? At its very core, a life support system is exactly what it sounds like. It's a collection of gear that basically fakes the conditions of Earth in a place where they don't exist. It's our own personal, portable environment, and it doesn't matter if we're walking on the moon or exploring the bottom of the ocean. But, to build something that keeps a person alive, engineers first have to answer a really basic question. What does a human body actually need? We're talking down to the last gram. This is the fundamental biological problem that every single life support engineer has to solve before they can even start. Just think about it for a second. If you had to pack a survival kit for one person for just one day inside a totally sealed room, what would you put in it? You'd think food, water, air, right? But how much? How much exactly? It turns out the answer is surprisingly specific. And that number is 5 kilograms. That's it. To keep one person alive and kicking for 24 hours, you need about 5 kilos, that's around 11 pounds of stuff. That's the daily metabolic input our bodies have to have. But the really crucial part isn't just the total weight, it's what makes up that 5 kilograms. And when you break it down, this is where it gets really interesting. You'd probably think food or even oxygen would be the biggest piece of the pie, but look at that, it's water. By a huge margin. We need over 3.5 kilograms of water every single day. This one simple chart defines the entire challenge for these engineers. So, with that 5-kilogram equation in hand, you can start engineering a solution. It becomes the blueprint for building a tiny, habitable world, one problem at a time. Now, for air, you'd think the solution is simple, right? Just pump in some oxygen. But it's not that easy. Early on, missions like Apollo used 100% pure oxygen atmosphere to save on weight. But this created a tinderbox. After the devastating Apollo 1 fire, engineers learned the hard way that a pure oxygen environment is an extreme fire hazard, especially on the ground. And this really shows you how much the thinking evolved. We went from that super high-risk 100% oxygen atmosphere in the Apollo days to the much, much safer Earth-like mix of nitrogen and oxygen that was used on the space shuttle and is still used on the International Space Station today. Sure, it's heavier, but it is vastly more stable. Okay, on to the next challenge, and this one is a big one. Remember that chart? Water is the single heaviest thing an astronaut needs. And launching all that water from Earth is ridiculously expensive and totally impractical for long missions. You can't just pack a few extra water bottles. So, what do? You recycle. You reclaim every single drop. Modern life support systems are these incredibly efficient closed loops. They are designed to capture water from literally every source imaginable. Showers, sinks, even the moisture an astronaut's breath, and then purify it right back into perfectly clean, drinkable water. It's not a joke when they say, yesterday's coffee becomes tomorrow's coffee. Now, beyond what we have to put into our bodies, life support also has to protect us. The moment you leave Earth's protective magnetic field, astronauts are just constantly being bombarded by space radiation. It's this invisible danger that can damage human cells and seriously increase the long-term risk of cancer. So, how do you fight an enemy you can't even see? Well, the solution is shielding. It all starts with the basic structure, the hull of the spacecraft itself. But engineers also get clever, using things like lining the walls with water, which turns out to be great at absorbing radiation. And now they're even testing some really futuristic stuff, like paints made from radiation-resistant fungi that could create a kind of self-replicating shield. And these principles, these incredible engineering solutions, they aren't just for space. The exact same challenges of creating a self-contained bubble of life apply in some of the most hostile environments right here on Earth. It's kind of wild, but the engineering problems you have to solve to survive in a space station are remarkably similar to the ones you face in a deep sea saturation habitat. I mean, in both cases, you are in a sealed can, you are completely cut off from the outside world, and you are 100% dependent on your life support systems to stay alive. I mean, just look at this list of components for an underwater habitat: gas mixing, climate control, sanitation, fire suppression. It's almost the exact same checklist you'd find for a spacecraft's life support system. The tech is just adapted for crushing pressure on the outside instead of a vacuum. So far, pretty much everything we've talked about is based on carrying our little bubble of Earth with us. But what happens when you go so far away that you just can't bring everything you need? For any long-term mission to the moon or Mars, the entire model has to change completely. This quote right here, this gets to the very heart of the next great challenge in space exploration. The ultimate goal is to live off the land, to actually use the resources that are already on another planet to sustain human life. That's how you break our dependence on Earth for survival. And these are two of the systems being designed to do exactly that. You've got Melissa, which is trying to create a perfectly closed loop, kind of like a tiny biosphere, using microbes and plants to regenerate everything. And then Cyblis takes it a step further. It's designed to use these super tough organisms, cyanobacteria, as little biological factories to process the Martian soil and atmosphere to produce the oxygen, food, and water that future colonists will need. You know, when you look at these future systems, you're not just looking at clever engineering anymore. You are looking at the foundational technology required for humanity to actually expand out into the solar system. This isn't just about building a better bubble anymore. It's about learning how to eventually live without one. So as we solve this problem of life support, are we also taking the very first, real steps toward becoming a multiplanetary species?